From a brand new star system coming next month to major feature updates and even some big surprises, there is a lot to cover. In this video, I'll break down the biggest highlights of the event and get you caught up on everything that you need to know. Let's first start with the upcoming new star system, Nyx. One of the biggest questions going into CitizenCon this year was, when will we get the third star system, Nyx? Well, Chris Roberts answered that just a few minutes into the event.
Last year, we announced our next star system would be Nyx, home to the People's Alliance of Levski and bordering the Vandal threat. Today, we're proud to share that your adventures in Nyx begin not next year, but next month, when Star Citizen's third system comes online in Alpha 4.4. 2 new systems in 1 year. That's only possible because of the tireless work of our development teams, server meshing accelerating what's possible, the support teams behind the scenes, and most importantly, all of you.
Now, this was a big surprise for many of us. I was especially surprised, as I think most people, or at least I was realistically expecting Nyx not to arrive until early next year at the earliest. But according to the event, the initial release of Nyx will include Levski, and also a new asteroid belt called the Glaciem Ring, and a few other interesting POIs and activities. But let's take a moment to listen to the devs talk a little bit more in depth about these things.
So because Nyx is bordering Vandal space, it was important that we have a gap in the Nyx gas cloud where you could sort of just, in between the clouds, see a piece of the Vandal space. It feels so close that it's even like protruding some red light. The level designers are using it as an actual visual indicator of where to place more dangerous POIs. So if you point your ship in the direction of it, you should find, as we build it out, that you will be in more and more danger. And I think that's really cool. For the jump points in Nyx, we'll have 2 on this release. We'll have 1 from Pyre to Nyx and 1 from Stanton to Nyx. It should be going from Nyx to Castra, but we're essentially bypassing Castra temporarily.
Hey, we want to make sure you can get there any way you want.
Glaciem Belt is a huge asteroid belt that is in sort of the middle of the system.
Delamar is a very large asteroid in the Glaciem Belt that QV Planet Services had built a mining base on that got taken over by the People's Alliance and renamed Levski.
It's going to be the central hub for trade and hauling and all of the commerce within Nyx and also from Nyx to other systems.
You'll initially see a very dramatic borehole that goes all the way through the asteroid. You'll also see, growing out from there and alongside Levski, there will be landing pads along what I'd call the spine. Lots of industrial pipes and transport systems to bring out the refined mining materials when it was a mining station.
We plan on bringing in whole sea gameplay, so this is exterior cargo elevators, so as a team you will be able to load and unload cargo.
So we're really happy to bring Levski back into the game. It's been gone for quite a few years now.
I think it really provided a unique environment of it's run down, but the people who live there love it and are working their hardest to make it a great place to live.
This is a location that has a lot of nostalgia for you guys, and we don't want this just to be a re-release. We do want you to go, wow.
It's not going to be as complete as Pyro was when it first came out, but it's going to be our first iteration, and you're going to be able to see it grow as we work on it.
So that should about cover what we can expect to come with Nyx at launch when it comes out next month, with additional planets and content arriving throughout 2026. Next, we're going to take a look at CIG showcasing their latest progress for their Genesis planet creation technology being used to create the worlds of Nyx. Now, let's talk about one of the most visually impressive updates from CitizenCon. CIG showed off an update on their Genesis technology, a suite of technologies that allow them to build more realistic, higher fidelity worlds. Let's watch a brief segment from the show itself showcasing this upcoming planet, Nyx 1, and the technology behind it.
At Cloud Imperium Games, we believe art inspires the best technology. And through the development of that technology, it pushes us to create even better art. When Genesis comes to the persistent universe starting next year, it will change how you experience every world. And not just in the building of the new planets for the Nyx system. We will also go back through Stanton and Pyro and reimagine them through the lens of our technology. Previously, and more traditionally, we'd create slices of biomes, like deserts or forests. This approach moved us forwards and got us this far, but solving the scale was always tricky. And for Star Citizen, we like to do scale on another level. Issues like seeing tiling from our height maps from high altitude, or the unpredictable blending when two biomes connected, were common. But ultimately, things just never felt right. Our worlds were gorgeous, but to us, they still sometimes felt like interpretations. Now, this was a super hard problem, which we needed to solve at the scale the Star Citizen requires. We challenged ourselves to emulate nature in the most believable way, and not just on a planetary scale, but to our level of detail. With Genesis, we've made a complete paradigm shift to how we do things. Biomes are now created based on the physical data sets, with the assets being spawned whenever and wherever the correct criteria is found. So when you see a forest or a meadow, it's no longer because an artist painstakingly crafted it there. It's now because it simply wants to be there. It fits inside our rules. Genesis also ties into our other gameplay systems. Our new planets are built from the information we create for our different datasets, like height maps, humidity, temperature, soil types, soil amounts, geology erosion data, to name but a few. This means you can now tell where to find valuable minerals as the geology looks like it would be suitable for it. Where scree piles exist below sheer cliff faces, and where rocks have broken off over time due to erosion. Of course, these new tools still give us the ability to direct the look and feel we want. The attention to detail from the tallest mountain to the smallest flower is still our core DNA. With Genesis, we can now keep that detail-orientated mindset as we focus on the quality, and it provides the quantity.
So in short, Genesis allows CIG to step up their world-building game across the board, from improved terrain to better handling of details at a distance, and everything in between. I was absolutely blown away by how much of an improvement Genesis brings, and I cannot wait to see Nyx 1 for myself, as well as how CIG will enhance existing planets with this incredible technology in the future. The next section was one I was highly anticipating personally, and that is the ship section. Now, in many past CitizenCons, this is where we've gotten major updates on ship progress, we've gotten new releases, and hints at ships coming in the near future. Now, this year's ship section was a bit different. There was really no mention of current progress on many highly anticipated ships. There was only some very vague hints at possible future ships like the Consolidated Outlands Pioneer, and there was no showcase of new ship silhouettes for discussion over the upcoming year, which was really a big downer for me. But instead, this year focused on highlighting 3 new ships coming to the persistent universe in the next patch, 4.3.2. So let's, for a second, take a quick look at what these 3 ships are.
The Paladin is a gunship from Anvil Aerospace designed to support ground operations.
A gunship is a ship that's designed to sustain a sustained firefight while dealing a lot of damage, also taking damage.
We don't have a lot of gunships in the game. They're true dedicated gunships. They are quite a tricky archetype to control in game without being too powerful. It's designed with a lot of firepower and high armor and health, but very low maneuverability.
If we swing round, following the ship round clockwise, what you'll then see is the first of the side turrets. If you notice the canopy, you'll see that there's a fairly thick space between where the glass is and the hull exterior. That's because it has deployable armor, which can come out and give you a little bit more cover while you're actually attacking the target head on.
It's got these really nice kind of dual connected wings with the turrets out on the sides, just to try and give as much kind of range for those turrets as we can get.
Which is controlled by one of the 2 remote stations underneath the bridge. If we come around to the rear, you'll see a rail. Now that rail mounts the main turret of the ship, which is controlled by the co-pilot.
So you've got full 360 coverage underneath, full 360 coverage on top with it, and then the side turrets also have 360 coverage that way around and 180 out sideways. So really you have, between the turrets, pretty much 360 coverage in all directions. The Vandal are big, scary space aliens. They're like 7-foot-tall, evil war race that sort of take over, steal technology, absorb it, fuse it all together into their own needs.
They are the relatively nasty aliens that you sometimes hear about and haven't seen much of yet. They also make really cool spaceships.
The Stinger as a Vandal heavy fighter was reserved for their higher tier sort of ace pilots or high-ranking members within their clans.
The Stinger is a competitor to something like the FA or I guess the Scorpius.
It packs a lot of firepower in quite a large frame, so it's a very, very tanky spacecraft. The firepower is almost unrivaled in terms of just both the number and the size of them. So it's there for players who don't want agility. They don't want to be in and out quickly. They want to be there brawling with big guns and taking all the hits.
So the Shiv, well, we don't really know what it is, to be fair.
It's what happens when someone who is a genius at aeronautics and ship assembly is given free rein to do whatever they want. It's the best of whatever they can find lying around, put together to make something truly unique, wonderful, arguably beautiful, and just released out into the universe to see what happens.
As you look a little bit closer, you'll start to pick out elements from other ships. You've got, main thrusters that are from the Valkyrie.
Even the bits that are obviously a Cutlass have had panels welded on, panels removed. The top turret, which is now remote, is just this hodgepodge amalgamation with multiple other ships' turrets. And then the changes continue onto the inside where, again, it sort of feels Cutlass-like, but then you'll find there's bits of Crusader ships just integrated into the wall instead of what was there originally.
It has very much taken that ethos of Drake and moved it down a level, which I think is quite an achievement.
Just look at this thing. How do you even begin to describe the madness that created this? It's the Shiv.
Now, I am pleasantly surprised by these new ships. These are ones that we were kind of expecting from some different leaks and data mines, but at the moment, I think personally the Anvil Paladin is going to be my favorite out of the 3 of them. All of them have some very interesting and unique features. I really like the ambient sounds in the Vandal Stinger. There's some very, very interesting sort of heartbeat sounds and just different organic sounds you get when you're inside the ship, so it's pretty cool. And the Shiv is just really unique and really goofy, so I still think the Paladin's my favorite out of all of them. I love the gunship aesthetic, the firepower, all that sort of good stuff. And I am slightly disappointed that we didn't hear any updates on ships that are currently in development or really get much news on future ships, but I do think there is a decent chance we could see some more in-depth ship updates at this year's IAE, the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, that'll be coming up in a few weeks in November. Next, we got a big surprise with a highly anticipated feature update for crafting. An initial version of crafting is coming to the tech preview testing channel by the end of the year. Now, this first version will focus on creating FPS gear such as weapons and armor, and will allow us to influence the item stats depending on the quality of the materials that we use. Now let's hear a little bit more from the devs working on this monumental feature and hear what they have to say about it.
First version of crafting is going to be quite small in scale. We're going to use it as a kind of a concentrated effort to allow the players to experience the initial UI, the flow of gathering materials that have different quality, and using those to craft items which are better than what they have currently in the game.
The first version is going to be primarily FPS items that you can craft, weapons and armor. Crafting isn't just a progression mechanic for creating new items. It's also a fundamental change to how we handle resources in the game. The materials that you collect, how you refine them, quality matters.
Crafting the weapons, you'll be able to have some quality materials to influence the item stats on those weapons.
It'll be somewhat random, potentially weighted on the location of the material. Some will have a higher chance of higher quality. And once you take those materials to your crafting bench, the fabricator, you can use them to craft, and the different attributes will be increased based on the quality of the materials you use. It's not just iron ore anymore, it's iron ore of the quality that you know will get you the stats for the item that you desire. And it's not just mining, it's essentially every resource we can get our hands on.
To support this, we also need major changes to inventory so that all of these new resources that you're collecting, you can see what you have, you can order it better, you can understand what you have in your inventory.
Once you have your blueprint and your quality materials that you've refined, then you can put them together on the item fabricator. This will be pretty much what we showed in last year's CitizenCon, with the UI letting you assign your quality resources to different aspects of the item. Once you're happy with what you see on the preview, you'll be able to click to craft, and it'll get queued up, and your result will be produced sometime later. You'll be able to get the new crafting machine from shops in most landing zones. You'll be able to bring it up on your freight elevator and use it in your personal hangar, or tractor beam it around and stick it on a ship if you want to use it from there. The advantage of crafting your own items is that they'll be better than anything that you could buy from shops. You'll be able to increase and improve item stats that are relevant to your gameplay. Maybe your gun will shoot faster, maybe it'll do some more damage, or your armor will have greater resistances against environmental effects or incoming fire.
It's our intention to get crafting out on tech preview by the end of the year and get the testing we need so we can release it when it's ready.
I am very, very excited for the initial implementation of crafting and further implementations coming down the line. Although it will be smaller in scale at first, I think it'll be able to give us a very good look at the potential progression that we'll be able to expect from other crafted items, like making ships and ship components and other larger items in the future. I'm also really looking forward to the updated inventory that they showed. It looks, of course, they're still working on it, but the old inventory is really one of the only big gripes that I have with the game right now. It's clunky and not the easiest thing to use, so I'm really hoping that this new inventory system will be a big improvement for that. Then we got another big surprise feature reveal. Instancing is coming to the game in 2026. Now, this technology will allow more curated experiences tailored to specific group sizes, for example, such as raids designed for maybe 3 to 5 people. It'll also help improve the performance of these raids and different missions. So now let's listen to a segment where Benoit and some other devs explain more about this upcoming technology.
We're bringing instancing to Star Citizen in 2026. Why are we doing it, and how will it work? So if you've played any content in 2025 in Star Citizen, you know that most of these areas were in actual PvP zones where other players could interfere. Instancing is a means to create an environment where designers can create tailored content that's tuned to a specific group size, but it is also protected from outside interference. But like most MMOs, a good balance between a dangerous overworld and a protected instances is needed. Right now, we don't have this ability, and this is something we really need in order to give you a sense of progression that is tailored and balanced to a tunable amount of groups, so the difficulty matches the group size. There's a beginning and an end. It doesn't mean that that doesn't fit
in our overworld strategy, meaning getting to the instance is dangerous, exiting the instance is dangerous, or can be interfered with others. But at least when you're playing the content, we can actually make something that's curated for one experience. Instancing is really an evolution over static to dynamic meshing. We want your instances to be as seamless as your instance hangars, meaning that when you take an elevator, you exit the elevator, you're inside the instance. A gateway opens, you cross that gateway, you're now into your instances. Could be also a quantum jump into an instance that you don't even see. The transition is just like a dynamic mesh transition. And so throughout the universe, we will be able to add these areas that are open or closed instances that allow you to join in either with a party and have a reserved instance for your party, or join in open instances that has a number of slots. And so some of those areas will be completely instanced on different servers. This allows us to leverage the compute power of the entire mesh. The closed ones will be really to drive one piece of content. You enter and exit seamlessly, just like we do with your instance hangars currently. Let's go and find out what one of our first instances will be.
Siege of Arisen was an event we did previously, which created a gameplay scenario where the player had to run through and progress through contested islands of Arisen. This was a high-paced, high-intensity event, but it struggled a little bit from its technical execution. But now with the introduction of instancing, it gives us an opportunity to evolve it and modify it and make it better for you and a small group to work through that activity.
I'm excited, to say the least, to bring back Siege of Arisen 2-star Citizen and to sort of have it be one of the first tests that we have for instancing and really get it back to sort of a core experience point where it should be. So while the next season is quite heavily focused on Nyx, I'm also very happy that we're not really ignoring our other two systems of Standard and Pyro, and we're going back there and we're sort of improving and expanding on the player's life in those two systems as well.
Now, this is another feature that I am really, really excited to see come to the game. I remember when they first put in Siege of Orison, how promising it looked. It was really fun to run around the platforms. I was like, man, you could work with all these people. There's tons of enemies to go take out. But unfortunately, it just never performed well. The mission bugged out quite a lot. So I'm very, very excited that hopefully with instancing, that mission will be very much elevated to what it should have been always, and I'm really looking forward to playing that hopefully pretty soon next year. But hopefully there'll be some pretty fun challenges and some fun and rewarding loot that you'll be able to discover there. We then got a segment where Jared sat down with Rich Tyrer, Senior Game Director for CIG, and they touched on some updates for Star Citizen 1.0. This discussion went on for about 15 minutes, so we won't watch all of that, so I'll summarize here their discussion. But basically, the work towards 1.0 is continuing, and they're steadily getting closer and closer with each patch. In their 1.0 presentation last year at CitizenCon, they talked a lot about the features and the different gameplay that would make 1.0, but they didn't necessarily talk much about a lot of the content that would be part of 1.0. And this is something that they've really wanted to focus on this year, the content and the story, which will help them in crafting their 1.0 story for the game. Rich then made sure to reaffirm that features are being worked on quite heavily in the background, he said. Specifically, FPS radar and scanning, engineering, quantum updates, crafting, and all of those features are coming very, very soon, according to him. Almost every decision they've made this year has been through the lens of keeping the game as stable as they can, which kind of lends to why there have not been as many big ticket features that have come in as they probably would have liked to come in, but sounds like there will be some tech previews coming very soon for a lot of these upcoming features. He was then asked the question, where do we go for the future? What more will we do to make the universe feel more alive? And what he said is the biggest thing that they're going to be working on right now is to have conversations be more two-way, so interacting with NPCs and mission givers with different dialogue. So instead of them just talking to you, you can talk back, and there might be additional mission content that's made available through that, and something that they're working towards very soon. And the end goal is to have some cinematics in the game as part of the story, and instancing will be integral to making these experiences possible. And then we got to the last topic and sort of the big one more thing segment for CitizenCon, where a new large-scale instanced mission for ships was shown in Nyx. So now let's hear some specifics on this upcoming dynamic mission set to come into the game mid-next year.
We're going to be delivering a spaceship-focused activity space which incentivizes the use of different gameplay roles. These are going to be scenarios where you're going to have to plan and strategize and create operational tactics to overcome your objective. So what you're going to see is very early. It's early in the pipeline process, and it's going to come online about mid-next year. But we're really excited about the content we're creating, so we want to share with you a super early look at what we're building in a space we're calling Tactical Strike Groups.
The People's Alliance are still trying to get to the bottom of what this new faction is really doing in the Nyx system.
They've sent a capital ship to check out a station and run into more than they can take care of themselves.
Unfortunately, that team came under attack and members of their groups were taken hostage. Now they've reached out to Intersec, who've reached out to you to help recover the pilot. Of course, it's unwise to do this alone, so you'll need to put a team together to attack the station.
Everything here has a purpose. It's not just for the show, just something nice to see.
You'll see a People's Alliance-owned Idris that's just on the outside, and it's going to be getting harassed by this unknown faction that you have met before. So while one part of your group is dealing with the fighters, now it's time to actually assault the station.
This station has been outfitted to resist all of the obvious way of attacks.
Somehow they've incorporated Vanduul capital ship killing turrets. These turrets ignore small fighters, and they have the firepower to destroy even the biggest capital ships.
Your Polaris and your Idris, if you get it close, it will get shredded. The idea of these is so we can sort of make it so we can mix up that ship combat, and not everyone can just bring the biggest ship and win just because they have the biggest ship.
So at this point you're thinking, destroy the turrets. But it's not that easy. This turret has shields that you've never seen before. It won't take any kind of damage. Your missiles won't do anything, your lasers won't do anything, your ballistics won't do anything to them. But like everything, they do have a weakness. You have to cut the power to their shields. To do that, that actually brings you to your first objective, the power relays.
So the exterior has a number of power relays that are holding the doors closed so that you can't get in.
You have to find them, you have to target them, and you have to destroy them. But it may not be as easy as it seems.
Here's our first wrinkle. The power relays have their own shields that are resistant to energy-based attacks. So ships with explosive or ballistic ordnance will be needed here. That's torpedo ships like your Retaliator or Gladiator, or even another fighter with ballistics loadout. That's going to take you a while.
Once the power relays have been taken down, the station opens up.
And this is where things get really cool.
Now it's time for you to fly your ship inside the station.
Yeah, you, in your ship, fly into the superstructure of this station.
How cool is that? So as you enter the structure, you'll see cooling units along the sides that you'll need to take out. There's 3 arms to the station that have these trenches. You'll fly into one, and then there'll be a core in the center, and then you'll move out another trench.
You're either gonna do it multiple times, or you need to bring friends.
At this point, the core is still protected, so these are essentially strafing runs.
There are objects to avoid. You're going to have to be able to dodge. You're going to have to move quickly. You need an agile ship.
Because the shield generator that you're targeting is emitting lots of distortion damage.
So once the cooling units are out, that exposes the core to overheat, which means that you can attack it from the inside and also from exhaust ports on the outside of the station. This core is armored and just takes a whole lot of damage. Once the power core goes down, the turrets come down, and then the capital ships can get closer. Why is that important? Because during all of this, you spend a lot of ammo and munitions and ballistics, and you're going to want to top up.
This is where we're going to get our new feature in, ship hangar refueling and rearming. You're going to be able to land in the hangar of select ships and be able to use the same interface as you are right now at stations to refuel and rearm.
It's specifically for ships like the Idris and the Polaris and other ships that are designed to have other ships land inside them.
Of course, it'll be more than just those two ships, and you'll find out more once we get closer to release, but this is a really important feature that we're really excited to get out. And it's a good thing that you've rearmed and refueled too, because now another group of ships is coming to attack the People's Alliance Idris. So while the fighters are protecting the Idris, what's happening at the station? Well, that's where the dropships come in.
Now you've got to take a fire team in. You've got to land, you've got to fight through an onslaught of FPS enemies that belong to this unknown faction, and you've got to open a hangar door which will allow you to release captives from the station. After you've opened the doors and that person's taken off, you've just got to make sure they get to safety.
So at this point, all of this sounds pretty simple, but there's an additional complication.
So up until this point, it's just been you versus the enemies in the station. But the enemies in the station have their own enemies.
The Van Duel neighbors who really don't like these guys for some reason will come in and wreak havoc on everything.
And they're not going to discriminate between you and the station. They're out for blood. When you alert the Van Duel by destroying the power core that the station's now vulnerable, you're on a time limit. Van Duel are coming, they're going to come hard, they're going to keep coming, you're going to have one hell of a fight.
Wow. Well, I will say I am so excited to play this event when it comes to the game. Having the need to like bring different specific types of ships, you know, your capitals, your fighters, your gunships, bombers, all those sorts of things, I think is something that has sorely been missing from the game up to this point. So I'm really looking forward to see how they make that work and how it's worthwhile to bring those different ships in. I'm also super excited for the new hangar rearm, repair and refuel feature, where you land your fighter and your Idris or your Polaris, you can top back off. I think it'll really add to the little bit of carrier gameplay that we can already have in the game. It'll really bring it up to the next level. I cannot wait to be like the supply officer on the Idris, coordinating bringing supplies in, like ammunition and all that sort of stuff, fuel, to make sure the ships can come in, get topped off, and then go back out. And of course, I cannot wait to fly my Perseus straight at that Van Duel capital ship and see if I can even do anything to it, or see how quickly I get evaporated. I'm just going to assume that the Perseus will absolutely annihilate it, and no one can tell me otherwise. Okay, but that's probably the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to for Star Citizen in 2026, and I cannot wait. But that's going to do it for this summary of all the big announcements and reveals from CitizenCon Direct 2955. I really think the event was pretty solid, and while there wasn't every update that I would have preferred to have seen, there was a lot of good and meaningful information and a lot of surprise information that I wasn't expecting, and I'm looking forward to diving deeper on that throughout the coming weeks and months. But I'd love to hear from your thoughts on the event. Did you have a particular favorite announcement? Are you going to pick up any of the new ships that were talked about? What new feature do you look forward to the most that was talked about? Make sure to let me know anything that you thought about the event down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more Star Citizen news updates coming in the near future. I thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the verse.